Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville and the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so excited that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We hope you join us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Jedley Magic on Twitter, and at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram. We have a wonderful guest today. She is the author of The Missing Money. Her name is Okeoma Moronu Schreiner. You know, I'm really excited that Okeoma is here. We're talking about financial literacy today, and that is such an important subject for our kids to help our kids grow up to know how to handle their money. And you know how to handle your money. That's why we want you to use the promo code RWYK, Reading with Your Kids. That's our initials, RWYK. At shytag.com, CHITAG.com, shytag.com, because when you use that promo code at checkout, you can save $3 on every ticket that you purchase for the upcoming Chicago Toy and Game Fair, November 23rd and 24th on Navy Pier in Chicago. It is going to be an amazing time. Your kids will get a chance to play with life-size toys and games. Life-size toys and games. They're going to have a chance to meet inventors. They're going to have a chance to meet authors. They're going to have a chance to be a part of the Reading with Your Kids totally interactive booth and find out what it's like to be a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. And everybody who comes to our booth and participates in our totally interactive booth gets entered to win our enormous prize basket. It's going to be a great time. It's happening November 23rd and 24th on Navy Pier in Chicago, the largest toy and game fair in North America, the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. I am so very, very excited to introduce you to our guest. She is coming to us from the beautiful country of Costa Rica. My family and I just returned. It is a beautiful part of the world. Our guest is the author of The Missing Money, the first in the Money Monster series. Please welcome to the show, Okeoma Moronu Schreiner. Okeoma, how are you?
Hello, Jed. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I love the energy. I am doing really well. Thank you.
I hope I didn't mash up your name too much introducing.
No, you did beautifully.
So I love this, the idea of teaching our kids financial literacy. I think it is so essential. We talk a lot on the show about how important it is for us to read with our kids, because reading with our little ones, it just gives them an introduction to reading, gives them a great foundation that will help them learn how to read. Continuing to read with our kids once they become independent readers is so important, because it helps them build empathy. It brings that bond of closeness between parent and kids, helps them learn new vocabulary. But some families don't spend any time talking to our kids about finances and money, and it is such an important thing to talk to our kids about.
Absolutely. And I know that for some people, they're going to think, oh, you shouldn't talk to your kids about money, like they're too little, they don't need to be burdened with these things. But the truth of it is, and the research has shown, that most people develop their feelings, and I'm not saying ideas and thoughts and knowledge, I'm saying feelings around money before the age of 6. So if you're not talking to your kids about money and helping to craft their feelings around money, they're going to develop those without you.
And one of the things, I understand that, because I know there are a lot of parents out there rolling their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to talk to my 6-year-old about? What am I going to talk about to my 5-year-old about money? And it's ridiculous. But what we don't understand is that we are already talking to our kids about money. We're talking to our kids. There are some parents are so stressed out about schools. So they're talking to their kids in preschool about college and how important it is to do well in preschool to get into college. And then our kids are exposed to thousands of media messages every single day telling them what they need. You need this. You need to buy that. You got to have this. So their kids are hearing about money, but they're not hearing what they really need to hear about money.
Oh, you couldn't be more right. I think that that's exactly the point. I think the point is whether or not you are having these conversations with your kids intentionally or unintentionally, there is a message that's being sent to them. And so you want to be part of that conversation and you want to be part of crafting that message.
So tell us, how is the missing money going to help us start that conversation with our kids?
Yeah, thank you. So the missing money is really an introduction into the series, and you meet the main character, and he's just a curious little boy who has a wild imagination. And so he has all these adventures in money, and he's one of those kids who wants to understand why, like so many of us parents know that kids, under the age of 6 they want to know why everything is. And so he really has these heart-to-hearts with his mom, who happens to be the money-minded one in the family. And one of the things that was really important to me in the book was that it really tackled modern day money concepts, and that it wasn't kind of the idea of a kid going to the bank. Like, I know people do still go to the bank, but the likelihood that our kids are going to spend a lot of time at physical banks in their lifetime is really low. And so I introduced in this first book kind of how does a physical dollar get into a banking app, right? Like, kids, most of their money is going to be electronic. And so it's nice for them to connect kind of the money they see in their piggy bank to how that money becomes electronic. And so that was the foundation I wanted to set. And then throughout the series, we're going to explore all sorts of things like entrepreneurship and credit cards, borrowing wisely, investing wisely, all of these in a really kid-friendly, age-appropriate way. I was a teacher before I was a lawyer, and so I have an early education background. So it was really important to me that these concepts were simple and fun for kids.
You're absolutely right. We're living in an age. I remember being in elementary school, and every week would bring in 50 cents or $1, and we would have that passbook savings account. And the school helped us open it up. And every week we would bring money into school, and we'd go into that passbook savings account. That doesn't happen these days. The kids. Probably, I imagine there's a big percentage of kids who've never seen a bank or never seen their parents go into a bank.
Absolutely, and they might never will, right? Mm-hmm. And that unless their parents intentionally take the time to take them, they may never in their lifetime. I'm not even saying that they need to. So it's really important to make those connections for kids, because to us, we were there for most of us through the evolution. I think there's probably a generation now that has always been in digital money and credit cards and all that. But, growing up, I definitely still got my allowance by cash. Mm-hmm. And I feel like nowadays kids do get them on like debit cards or whatever the case may be, or directly credited to like a school like card. Mm-hmm. And so, the research shows that people spend money differently when it's digital versus when it's paper. Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But I think we should start having these conversations with our kids early and often. And it doesn't have to be serious, and it doesn't have to be stressful. It can just be, as you said, a moment to connect with them behind the covers of a book the way you do every other night.
Yeah, I guess one of the important things for kids to understand is, like you said, how that money gets into that account. And not only understanding the kind of, well, it's not physical thing, but, the kind of electronic thing that happens. But the kids need to understand that someone has to do some work to earn that money that ends up in your bank that you get to spend. And, they need to understand that, if I want this thing, then someone's going to have to work this many hours or do this many tasks.
Yeah, and I think making money is such an interesting concept, because as the workforce changes, we have to think really dynamically about earning money, and our kids need to be able to think very dynamically about earning money. I mean, so many of the jobs people my age have today didn't exist when we were growing up, thinking about what we were going to be when we were older. And so really learning how to hone your skills and learning that money, you're paid money, like you said, for doing work that has value, right? And the money is a reflection of the value of the work, whether, we can disagree politically about whether it's the right value, but that's what we're saying in society. And so teaching kids to think in those terms, as opposed to think in terms of I want to be a doctor because doctors make a lot of money. That may be true today. We don't know what that's going to look like 15, 20 years from now. Mm-hmm. And so instead, we should have them thinking in terms of, I'm really good with my hands and I want to help people feel better. What will that look like? I don't know yet, but if I keep honing that skill, that will be something that has value and I will get paid money for that.
What an exciting way to introduce kids, and what, like we were saying, a really safe kind of way to talk to kids about it. It's not, you better go to college, you're not going to be able to afford a house, you're not going to be able to live. It's just like, hey, what do you like to do? And how do you like to do things? And this is what happens when you hone those skills and develop those skills.
And if you're nervous at all, which I know some parents still are about having the conversations, I do include at the back of every book conversation starters and more tips on how to have the conversations, because I know that it can be hard to know what is the right way to push your kids to think about money without kind of overlaying your own insecurities or anxieties, because we do as adults carry a lot of stress around money, and there's no need to pass that on to our kids.
I need to know. I'm really curious. I don't need to know. And that's, I guess, one of the things we can help our kids understand is, what do we need and what do we want? I want to know, what was it that inspired you? You were a very, very successful person in Manhattan, a lawyer, into big business, very, very successful. And then you decided to, no, we're going to take some time. We're going to move to Costa Rica, and I'm going to start writing these books. What inspired that? What inspired you to get off that kind of treadmill that so many people feel they need to be part of for their life?
Yeah, to be honest, it was getting a handle on my money. I came out of law school with over $250,000 in student loans, and I had always been, quote unquote, good with money. I'd always been a really good at earning money and really good at saving money. I had never really had conversations with my parents about borrowing money and how to borrow money responsibly. And I also hadn't had very many conversations with my parents about kind of what to do with my money long term, like how to invest my money and like plan for the future. Everything was very immediate. And part of that's because my parents were immigrants, and so money was always very immediate. But once I became a lawyer, all of a sudden I had these huge amount of loans, and I was managing huge amounts of money. I worked on Wall Street for many years doing multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar deals, like numbers of zeros I had never seen in my life, and learning so much about the way that money works and the way money moves and the opportunities money can create for you. And so I personally created a plan around my money, which would allow me the freedom to do what I'm doing today, which is move to Costa Rica and spend some time with my kids and kind of doing some of these other projects that I feel so passionately about. But the reason I wanted to write a children's book was because somebody overheard me having a conversation with my son over Christmas when he was about, I guess he would have been just turned 5. And he was asking if I would help him finance a bike. And they thought that was like the funniest thing in the world. They were like, how does your son even know that word? And it's because I'm a finance lawyer, and he asked me what I do for my job. And so I explained to him, I help people buy really big things. And sometimes if you're buying a really big thing, you don't have enough money, so you borrow some of the money. And, I explained the whole thing to him. And so he wanted to buy this bike. He didn't have enough money. And so he, being the industrious 5-year-old that he was, asked if he put a down payment on, would I finance it for him? And my friend just like cracked up, and she was like, you need to be putting this in a book. Like, people need to, like, this is hilarious. And if I'm being honest, at first I took it very seriously, and I was going to write this like parent's guide to money for kids or something like that was of, seemed important enough for a Wall Street lawyer to be writing. And I realized that what I was passionate about and the thing I missed most about being a teacher was really working with kids. Mm-hmm. And so this was an opportunity for me to do that and to be more creative and for it to be a creative outlet for me. And I love, love, love. It's the thing I love most in my job as a lawyer. It's the thing I love as a parent. I love breaking complex concepts into simple, easy to understand information that people can leverage to improve their lives.
Well, I mean, I love that you made this choice because it's a lot more accessible, not only to kids, but to parents. You're talking about the fact that there are a lot of parents are intimidated by money. They don't have a handle on their own finances, and talking to kids about it's going to be really scary. Well, there's nothing scary about your picture book. I mean, it's just it's so inviting. I mean, there's this funny money monster on the cover, but it's obviously a fun book, and it's something that that families are just going to feel very comfortable diving into together with their kids.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, it was so important to me that this was a kid's book first and an informational book second. I really wanted this to be a book that kids would want to read over and over again, and not a book that they were reading because they had to have their money lesson for the week.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is important. And I think people downplay the importance of picture books. They're so valuable, and it's such a great way to teach kids. And we know that because the biggest corporations in the world, they use pictures to sell their products. They might not use pictures in a picture book, but they're using pictures on screens to sell us on things. And it's just brilliant. I'm so happy that you've created the Missing Money, and I'm really happy about the Money Monster series. What are the kind of things that you're looking to tackle, like in book 2 and then 3 and 4?
Yeah, that's a great question. So books 2 and 3 will be out shortly. They should be out in the spring. Book 2 is called Paper or Plastic, and it's about a trip to the grocery store, and he learns about the difference between cash and credit cards and kind of borrowing responsibly on a credit card and how it's not magic money that lets you buy everything in the store. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really fun little adventure with Kai, who's our main character. And then book 3 is called The Creeping Cost, and it's a book on entrepreneurship and kind of topics we were talking about earlier about making money from doing work that has value. And he tries to start an old school lemonade stand and learns that that's not his strength and that there's too much overhead, and it's just not very profitable for him because he doesn't enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. And so then in the process, he learns his favorite part of the lemonade stand was creating the signs. And so he opens a sign creating business for all the neighborhood garage sales and stuff. And so it's a really cute little book about, discovering your passion and making money in the thing that you like, and overhead, which I think is an important part of the lemonade stand that we always overlook with kids.
That book is so needed. I remember when I was telling my family that I was going to become a professional clown, and they're looking at me like, "Did you just suffer a brain injury? Oh, I'm sorry, what?" And I was able to do it, but boy, talk about hurdles and people thinking that was crazy. And I grew up in a blue collar family, and it was like, no, you got to go and work for utility, and you got to get a job, and you have the same job for the rest of your life. And I actually left a state job to follow this crazy passion of mine, and that was really crazy. But the reality is most of our kids are probably going to be working in the gig economy, and mm-hmm. they're going to have to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that kids start to discover those things for themselves. I mean, for so many of us, learning what we're passionate about is really about going back to what we loved at that age. When I told my mom I was writing a children's book, you would think my mom's a Chinese, traditional Chinese mother. And you would think telling her that I was going from Wall Street lawyer to writing children's books that she would be shocked and dismayed. But she was like, yep, that makes sense. You used to hand sew books in your room when you were 5 years old. And she was like, you know what I mean? It makes perfect sense. You had these elaborate, and they were always series, which is also hilarious. I would create I used to love reading children's book series, young adult series when I was younger, and I used to create these really fantastical worlds. And my mom still has them, these little series of books I would create that I would hand sew the pages together, because I was not satisfied with the quality of books you could buy at the bookstore, apparently, which is such a testament to my perfectionism. But I think that teaching kids that the thing that they're passionate about isn't an accident, and it may actually have value, and because it has value, it could be something that, they make money off of is a valuable lesson. And the gig economy proves that out. And I'm not a huge advocate of just follow your passion and kind of throw caution to the wind. But I think when done strategically and done with intention, it can really lead to a fulfilling life.
Well, thankfully, around the time that I was telling my family I was going to be a professional clown, I met my beautiful wife, and she helped me go on this journey with some intention and passion and intelligence, and it's worked out. You mentioned something early on, and I wanted to get back to it. You talked about leaving this really successful career on Wall Street, where I'm sure you're making very, very comfortable salary.
Yes.
And taking that time because you wanted to spend time with your family. So you made this choice based on your values. And it's wonderful that you're in a position to do that. But one of the things that I think is so important, whether we're reading a storybook with our kids or reading something to our kids talking about financial literacy, is talking to kids about our values and what is important to us, and is the pursuit of money the most important thing in our lives, or is family what we're going to put most important in our lives? And I think those are conversations that are really important to have, and I think that we can have those conversations while we're talking about financial literacy with our kids.
I love that you connected money to values, because I think that that's really what it's about. Your money supporting your values. And if you have those conversations with your kids, I think it makes things a lot easier around setting boundaries. It's hard for kids to understand we don't have enough money. That feels scary. If you say instead, we're choosing to spend our money on this thing because it's more aligned with our values, obviously not those words, those are very adult words, but if that's the concept you're communicating to them, that feels better for the kids. And this was one of the things that we communicated. Our kids are 4 and 6 now, but when we started down this journey to prepare for this trip to Costa Rica, we had to make some financial decisions and cut back on some things. And we did have a conversation with them, this is going to be a really fun adventure. And part of the reason we're not going on this vacation this year is because we're saving for this really exciting thing that's important to us as a family. And so when we were at Target, we would, they would want all the toys, and they would say the toys have to stay at their home, which is Target. and because we're going to have a new home and we can't take them all with us. But they kind of understood what we were all working together as a family towards. And so I love that you tied those two things together, because I think it's so true that if you just make it about earning money and not having enough money and needing money, it can feel very impersonal, and it's not very motivating for kids.
Well, I mean, as parents, I think it's our primary job, is to pass our values on to our kids and help them understand that they are special and precious in our lives, and help them understand that the people around them, that every human being is special and precious, and just to kind of help them figure out what is special and precious in their life, and not let the media, not let outside influences, dictate to them what they think they should find special.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I have to know, because I just returned from Costa Rica, was anybody in your family, were they shocked to go down to find out that in Costa Rica, like a sandwich could cost $40,000?
Yeah. So we talk about exchange rates. My kids still are mesmerized because they have the 100 colones coin, which is like, I don't know, a quarter, basically, a little bit more than a quarter. But they're like, I have 100. Like, you don't have 100. Like, it's, so we haven't tackled exchange rates yet, but maybe we'll get there and book like 7 or 8.
Well, I took a picture because I don't think I'll ever have a 10,000 bill in my wallet.
That's funny.
And that's about $20 for all.
Yep.
Well, tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the missing money.
Yes, absolutely. So the book is available now on Amazon, and you can also get the book on our website at moneymonstersbooks.com.
Excellent. And like I said, it's a great book. The illustrations are wonderful, and it's a really, really important thing to start talking to our kids about. We've had such a fun time speaking with the author of the Money Monsters series. Book 1 is The Missing Money, Okeoma Moronu Schreiner. Okeoma, thank you so much for being part of our show.
Oh, thank you so much. The pleasure was all mine.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our scheduled guest is Glenn Kennard. He is going to talk to us about his wonderful book, Tony the Theater Dog, and also talking to us about how we can introduce the arts to our young children. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are an author, why aren't you on our show? Being an author, being a guest. Being an author means you've written a book. Being a guest means that you have a chance to tell thousands and thousands of people about your fantastic book. It's really, really easy. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We'll let you know the next easy steps. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Okeoma Moronu Schreiner, thank you so much for talking to us about the missing money. Also want to thank my producer, Fatima Khan. Be sure to check out her blog at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. And, of course, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being part of our show today. Thank you so much for being part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. And most of all, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.